So welcome everyone to our self-care this holiday season webinar. My name is Amanda Krisher. I am a licensed clinical social worker and the training director for the Engage with Skills training programs at the Mental Health Association of Maryland. I absolutely love teaching. Self-care is definitely a passion of mine. And so when we had the idea to do kind of a self-care holiday workshop, I was super excited to jump on board with that and put something together. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to share my screen so we can see the presentation. Like we said before, if you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to type those in the chat. Casey will be monitoring those. And so if we need to stop in the middle, we can definitely do that and go through those questions. Otherwise, we will have some time at the end of the session as well. Okay. All right, so can everyone see the screen okay? Casey, if you can just kind of give me a, yep, looks good, that would be great.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we are here to talk about self-care this holiday season. This holiday season looks a lot different than any other holiday season most of us have participated in. And so self-care this year is probably going to be more important than ever. So let me tell you a little bit about the Mental Health Association of Maryland. So we are an organization that's been around for over 100 years. And our mission really is to address the mental health needs of Marylanders of all ages through programs that educate the public to increase understanding, provide resources, advance public policy to improve care and outcomes, and monitor the quality of services received by individuals who are living with mental illness and substance use. So really, we really consider ourselves programs for people, and our focus is advocacy that's going to change lives. And so I've been with the organization for almost 2 years now. I came in March of 2018, and I have absolutely loved every single second of working with the team here. I really truly believe in the mission and know that good work is happening from our organization and the amazing colleagues that I work with. So let's talk about stress. So we need to kind of start with a sort of standard definition of stress. And so stress is the physical, mental, or emotional response to events that cause bodily or mental tension. Simply put, stress is any outside force or event that affects our body or mind. And so every single one of us that's here today is impacted by stress in a different way. Some people really feel stress in a physical manner. Maybe they have muscle aches or headaches or that fatigue. Other people really feel it mentally, where they just aren't able to focus. They maybe feel very burned out, or emotionally, where they've kind of shut down. So I want you to think about, as we're going through the presentation today, I want you to think about, how does stress impact you, and what are the ways that your body and mind tell you that you are kind of approaching that critical level of stress. And so I like to think about stress kind of as a curve. So we can have stress that's good. You know, there are different types of stress that actually can help motivate us. We call that eustress. And sometimes celebrating holidays can cause that good stress for us. And then we kind of have this middle kind of space where we're, you know, kind of living kind of neutrally. And then we may get to a point where that stress sort of takes over. And that's where we really need to focus and think about, what are those signs and symptoms that you start to notice in yourself that indicate that you need to do something to take care of this stress. So we talked a little bit about what stress is. Now let's talk about kind of this concept of holiday stress. So the holidays often bring joy, celebration, and love into our lives, but they can also bring stress, especially during a global pandemic. This year, like I said in the beginning, this year looks completely different than any other year that we've ever celebrated. And so it's really very important this year to continue to practice self-care and find ways to help reduce that stress whenever possible. So again, that holiday stress is the response that we're feeling, that stress response that we're feeling, that's specific to the holidays and our celebrations. And so again, your level of kind of where that sort of tipping point is with holiday stress might be a little bit different than some of the other stressors in your life. And so we really want to be mindful of kind of, when do we need to sort of say, okay, there's something about this holiday season that's causing stress and I need to do something about it. So what are we going to do about it? We're going to be focused on practicing self-care. So we need to define self-care. What exactly is it? It's really the activities that we deliberately do to care for our mental, emotional, and physical health. And I love this image that you can't pour from an empty cup. So we have to take care of ourselves first. And so if you think about, for me, I think about, as I'm a person who loves to give. And so I give from my cup every day in the work that I do with my family, with my friends. That's something that brings me joy. And that's something that makes me happy. But I also know that when my cup starts to get really low, it's a lot harder for me to want to engage in those activities. And so I need to find ways to sort of refill myself and take care of myself. And I know a lot of times we think of self-care as like this big elaborate thing. You know, we're going to go on an expensive vacation, or we're going to, go spend a day at the spa or something like that. But self-care doesn't have to be a big elaborate thing. It can take as few as 5 minutes a day. So maybe it's listening to your favorite music. As some of you heard in the beginning before we got started, I had my Pandora Christmas station playing. For me, just listening to music can help fill my cup back up. Maybe it's taking a quick walk around the neighborhood to see the Christmas lights. Maybe it's, just sitting down for 2 minutes and kind of trying to find some quiet time. So this self-care doesn't need to be sort of this big elaborate thing. And before we move forward, what I would like to do is try something a little bit different. I am going to share a whiteboard. And what I want you to do is, if you feel comfortable with it, feel free to write on the whiteboard or type on the whiteboard. What are some of the self-care activities that you do that you find helpful? So we're going to switch over to this whiteboard really quick. Okay, and so you should all see it, and then you should also have a little panel. And so if you hit the little T for text, it'll allow you to type in there. So what do you do for self-care? And feel free to kind of write or draw or whatever. I just want to give people a couple minutes to take some time to see what are some of the activities that the rest of us are doing, so that maybe we can also leave here with some other ideas. So for me, I've been spending a lot of time in the kitchen. I love to bake, and so if you're having trouble putting anything on the whiteboard, feel free to also put it in the chat, and we can share those responses as well. All right, I see someone who's doing puzzles. Awesome. Yep, going camping. Puzzles, camping, bath bombs. Nice. Unplugging, watching a show, exercise. Great. Zoom sessions with family. Excellent. Gratitude lists.
Angela says reading.
Oh, yes. I'm trying to type as fast as you guys are going. Movies and TV shows. Shopping without the kids. Yes. Service. Awesome. Great. So a lot of you are already doing some really fantastic activities for self-care, and hopefully some of these are ideas that the rest of us can join in with as well. Walking the dog. Skincare. Awesome. I love it. All right, so we are going to talk about some other different tips and things that we can do to hopefully continue to take care of ourselves throughout the holiday season. All right, so we're going to go right back here to the presentation. Excellent. Okay. So what we've done here with this session is kind of came up with sort of 10 general tips, and we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about each of them. So tip number one, in my research, as I was kind of thinking about what do we do differently around the holidays to potentially manage our self-care a little bit better, And the first thing that I really found to be helpful is acknowledging our feelings. So this holiday season looks different. We know that. And it's very possible that there's more sadness and grief associated with this holiday season than any other holiday season before. And that sadness and grief might be because you've lost a loved one recently, or maybe that sadness and grief is related to the fact that the holiday traditions that you've always done just aren't possible this year because they're not safe. And so it's really important for us to give ourselves time to, number one, acknowledge those feelings and then express them. And when I say express them, I'm not saying that you need to, go out and shout to the entire world how you're feeling, but is there someone that you feel comfortable talking to about these feelings related to the holiday season? Do you need to write them down and sort of just kind of get them out? So whatever way feels most comfortable for you to acknowledge your feelings and express them is what I want you to really be thinking about. So maybe that is that you're going to talk to somebody about it. Maybe you're going to just write down those feelings. Maybe you're just going to spend a few minutes sitting and sort of reflecting on those feelings and coming to terms with them. But whatever the case is, it's really important to acknowledge the feelings that we're having this holiday season because they may not all be joyful. And that's okay because this is a very different world that we're living in. So our next tip is to be realistic. So we know the holidays are not going to look the same as before. My family in particular, we every year have a very big Christmas Eve celebration with all of the extended family. And this year that is going to look very different because we're not going to be able to be together. And so instead of our large family gathering, there's going to be a lot of small sort of pods of families, which isn't the same and is definitely disappointing to not be able to participate in that. But the reality was that we needed to find a different way to keep that tradition going while still maintaining the safety for our family members. And so we might need to come up with new traditions. Maybe now, we've always done some kind of, cookie exchange. And recently I saw the idea of having sort of a front porch cookie exchange where, you make your cookies, you organize with your group of friends, everybody puts their bag of cookies out on their front step, and then you drive around and get, pick up your bag and leave your bag of cookies for that person. And so maybe we just kind of need to revamp the way that our traditions look. Maybe you do something a little bit different with an advent calendar this year. So I've seen a lot of places say, each day you put an item into a box and then donate that box to a local food pantry at the end of the month. So we really can come up with new and different ways to celebrate, but we need to remember to really make the most of the traditions that we can safely continue. So we might not be able to do everything, but how can we stay safe in the traditions that are most important and meaningful to us? All right, so tip number 3 is learning to say no. And if you're anything like me, this is not a word that is in my vocabulary very frequently. I am very much a yes person and very much want to do everything for everyone all the time. And so we need to really remember this season that if we say yes when we should be saying no, that can leave us feeling resentful and overwhelmed. And so we really need to be mindful of the things that we're agreeing to do, the places that we're agreeing to go, the commitments that we are agreeing to make. And we really need to make sure that we're maintaining our safety. And so this year we might be saying no more often than we have in years past because we need to remember the safety of our family and our friends. And so like I talked about, my family does kind of a big holiday gathering, and we've kind of created a new way to do that. But maybe your family is still planning to have that holiday gathering, and now you're sort of feeling stuck between, do I go to it and maybe put myself and my family at risk of exposure, or do I say no and potentially have some guilt because I said no? And I'm not going to tell you, which way or which thing that you should do. But I think it's just important to remember that it's okay to say no. If there is something that you're feeling like it's just not the right thing for your family at this time or for yourself at this time, that's okay. And it's all right to say no. All right, so let's talk about tip number 4, sticking to healthy habits. So this is kind of, one of those ones that we always talk about. Many of you shared your healthy habits that you're already engaging in. So that is excellent. I'm going to encourage you to keep up with those. But some of our healthy habits can be things like making healthy food choices. Are we getting enough sleep at night? Are we getting out to do some exercise? And the really nice thing about healthy habits is that this doesn't have to be done sort of in a silo. We don't have to, we don't have to just be stuck in our own little bubble trying to do these healthy habits. We can get everybody involved. And so maybe, you put on some fun Christmas music or some fun holiday music and you have a dance party and everybody's, moving and grooving and getting excited and using up some of that energy. Maybe you're going to take advantage of a festive pandemic inspired event. So I know a lot of places are doing sort of their light displays and, you can drive through them, you can walk through them. And so can you safely engage in some kind of event in that sense? And maybe it's just taking a hike in nature and exploring and seeing what's around you. One of the things that's been really amazing for my family, we're in Hartford County, Maryland, and throughout the pandemic, we have become much more acquainted with the trails and parks and things that are in our area, because that's something that we feel like is safe to do and gives us an opportunity to be outside. My daughter is almost 16 months old and she loves to be outside. And so, she'll pick up rocks, she'll pick up leaves, she'll play around, and she's really in her element. And so her exploration of nature is really a great thing for her. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us all to be outside, to get that fresh air, to get that sunshine and get a little exercise as well. Okay, our next tip is to breathe or meditate. And so a couple of you talked about this in your self-care discussion. And so this is just an opportunity for us to sort of reiterate how important it is to breathe. And when I talked about in the very beginning of the session that self-care doesn't need to be this big elaborate thing, breathing and meditating is one of those simple, short things that we can do as a self-care practice. And so when we feel ourselves start to get stressed or overwhelmed, we can take just a few minutes or seconds to take some deep breaths. If we have a little bit more time, maybe we use a 2 or 5 minute meditation on our smartphone or on an app. I am a Fitbit user, and so I have both a 2 minute and 5 minute kind of breathing exercise that I can just click on my watch and it leads me through that. There's apps that will do that for you. Maybe, you just set a timer on your phone and just sit for 2 minutes and do those deep breathing exercises. However you can fit that in. This is one of probably the easiest practices for self-care. Not always the easiest to implement, but it's definitely one of the least time consuming. And so before we move forward, I want to give us some time to practice this anyway. And so I can't see you, but what I would like for you to do is to get yourself in a comfortable position wherever you are sitting, listening to this webinar. If you're hanging out on the couch, if you're sitting at a desk, wherever you are, get yourself in a comfortable position. And we're going to practice doing some deep breathing. We're going to do a couple deep breaths together. And if you're not familiar with deep breathing, sometimes it's helpful to put your hands kind of on your belly, because when we do a deep breath, most of us, when we breathe, kind of breathe really shallow. And so we see a lot of, shoulders going up and not a lot of really filling of our lungs. And so when you're doing a nice deep breath, you really are going to feel your belly expand out. So as you're breathing in, your hands should be kind of pushing out as you're taking that nice deep breath. So some people find it helpful to put their hands on their belly so that they can really feel that expansion happening. So in whatever comfortable position you're in, if you want to close your eyes, whatever makes you feel the most comfortable. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a 4-2-4 breath. So we're going to breathe in for 4, we're going to hold for 2, and we're going to breathe out for 4. And we're going to do that 3 times. And I'll walk you through the count. And so when you're ready, we're gonna begin. So I want you to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 1, 2, and out. 2, 3, 4. Another deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 1, 2, and breathe out. 2, 3, 4. And our last one, deep breath in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, and out. 2, 3, 4. Okay. So give yourself a second to just kind of come back to where we are. But hopefully, just those few deep breaths kind of gave your mind an opportunity to reset. And so we, just taking that few seconds, that probably wasn't even more than 30 seconds or so, to do those couple deep breaths really gives our brain an opportunity to reset and kind of bring us back to the present moment. Another thing that you can do, kind of another meditative exercise, is using your senses. And so if you think about your 5 senses, we usually tell people, think about what are 5 things that you can see in the environment around you. So I can, see my computer, I can see my lamp, I can see the tree behind me, the ornaments, I can see the pen on my desk. What are 4 things that I can touch? What are 4 things that are near me that I can touch and feel? And so maybe it's, the hard desk, maybe it's the soft carpet under my feet. It's the fuzziness of my sweater. What are those things that we can touch? What are things that we can see? What are 3 things that we can see in our environment? Sorry, I already did that one. See, touch, 3 things you can hear. That's the next one. What are 3 things that you can hear in the environment? So you're hearing my voice. Maybe you're hearing some noise outside. I have jingle bell earrings on, so I'm hearing those jingle every once in a while, depending on my movement. And then what are 2 things that we can taste, and 1 thing that I'm trying to think right on my feet of what the last one is. But as you can see, kind of just going through our senses and really kind of giving an opportunity again to sort of reset our mind, because that really brings us into the present right then and there. Okay. Before we keep going, I just want to stop and find out, are there any questions before we keep going? Thank you. Smell would be the last one. Thank you.
Yes, feel, touch, smell, and hear.
Thank you, Casey.
I have trouble remembering those too.
Yeah.
Angela is wondering if there are any meditation apps or videos that we recommend.
Yeah, so actually, I do have a couple that I have used for other presentations. I did not include them specifically in this one, but when we send out the evaluation link, and I was also going to send out a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation, I will include the list of the few that I myself have utilized, or other people that I know have utilized that have had success with those. So definitely I can include those when we send out the follow-up email. Great. Any other questions before we continue?
If anyone has questions, please type them into the chat box or raise your hand using the button.
Okay. All right, so we are going to move forward with our next tip, which is practicing gratitude. And so I did see in that self-care, in our self-care activity where we talked about things that we're already doing, a couple of you did mention this. And so what's really fantastic about self-care or about gratitude is that research has shown that gratitude can actually boost our physical and mental health. So when we are practicing gratitude, it actually helps us feel better. They've scientifically shown that that gratitude can give us a boost in our physical and mental health. And really, who doesn't need that right now? So there's a lot of different ways that we can practice gratitude. Some people I know will have like a jar in a room that is very common, maybe the kitchen, the dining room, and little pieces of paper. And so when something good happens, they write that down on the piece of paper and they put it in the jar. And then during this month, that's a great time, or during November around Thanksgiving, that's a great time to pull things out of the jar and see what are the things that we've been grateful for throughout the year. Maybe it's a gratitude journal. So, you just have a journal that's specific to the things that you're grateful for. And so on a particular day, I might, say that today, this really awesome thing happened and I want to be able to remember that. And then being able to go back and see throughout the year, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the day, even, what are the things that really, that we felt grateful for. And again, it doesn't need to be a big, huge thing. For me, one day, so one of the things that I do during the month of November is I do a gratitude journal. So every day, I write down something about that particular day that I'm thankful for. And I remember there was multiple days in a row where it had been gray and cloudy, and the sun finally came out. And that's what I was grateful for that day, because the sun brightened my mood. It helped me feel better. It warmed things up a little bit. And so that wasn't, a big, huge thing, but it was something that was meaningful for me in that moment. Other times, maybe it is a big, huge thing. Maybe it's that you got the letter that you got the job that you wanted, or your son or daughter was accepted into the college that they wanted to go to, or maybe it is a big thing that we're grateful for in that particular moment. But whatever it is, we want to find ways to celebrate all of those things, because those are the things that are going to bring us more physical and mental health and joy. So really just kind of reminding ourselves, what am I thankful for? And again, maybe it's a practice that you do every day. Maybe it's a practice you do once a week. Maybe it's a practice that you do just kind of when the moment feels right. But we know that that practice will help us feel better. Okay, so our next tip is to give or serve others. And so this can take on some different forms during a global pandemic. Maybe your family typically volunteers at a homeless shelter to serve a meal, or delivers meals to people, and maybe that's not possible this year. But instead, maybe we can send cards to someone, or if we have the financial means, can we give to an organization that's close to our heart? Maybe we're going to adopt a family for the holiday season, or a pet for the holiday season, a senior, children, whoever it might be, and purchase gifts for them. Maybe we're going to make some treats and bring them to our neighbors. If you're in a snowy place, when the snow comes, maybe you're going to shovel someone's sidewalk or driveway. Finding those simple ways to give and serve to others. Earlier, I mentioned kind of the different concepts of Advent calendars. And so I've seen a lot of people this year talk about, every day putting an item into a box, a non-perishable food item into a box that they will then donate to a local food pantry at the end of the month. A funny story about making treats for your neighbors. So as I told you, baking is one of my self-care strategies. And so this past weekend, I decided to make 3 different kinds of cookies. There are 2 of us, including plus my 16-month-old daughter in the house. So 3 of us, 2 of us who are really the ones eating cookies. And I made, I don't know, 6 dozen cookies or 7 dozen cookies. And I'm thinking, okay, I cannot have all these cookies in my house. And so my neighbor immediately next to me and across the street we're very close with. And so I packaged up some cookies and I brought them over. And my neighbor who's right next to us said, he had seen my post on Facebook about being in my Christmas element baking cookies and thought, oh, I wonder, if I'll be lucky enough to have cookies show up at my door. And so that made me smile, because I know how much he loves and appreciates my baking. And so it felt good to know that, not only did I do some self-care for myself by baking something yummy, but then I made someone else feel really good by sharing that. And that was, kind of a relatively simple thing to do. So thinking about what are some ways that you can give and serve to others this holiday season. All right, tip number 8, we want to get creative. So make something, anything, color, paint, make a craft, try a new recipe, write a poem or a short story, whatever is going to get those creative juices flowing. So every year I usually make a different ornament to give out to family and friends. And so, maybe this is a year that you decide you're going to give that a try. And there's a lot of great, easy things to do. There's a lot of fun ideas on Pinterest. And so, thinking about what are the things that you're going to do to get creative. Doing a puzzle is also a creative activity as well. Maybe you're going to do some of the meditative coloring books, whatever the case may be, finding ways to get creative. Maybe you're going to get creative with your holiday decorations outside. I recently discovered window markers. And so my plan is, as we get closer to some of the holidays, to make a pretty picture on my glass front door that the neighborhood can enjoy. So again, kind of new and different ways to be creative. And our creativity does not always need to be kind of an arts and crafts sort of thing, but we can also find ways to get creative with our holiday baking. So maybe this is the year that we try that new recipe. Maybe you've always done kind of the same things, the same foods during the holiday, but this year maybe shake it up a little bit and get creative. Find a new spin on a dish that's beloved by your family. Maybe your mashed potatoes are done in a different way this year, or maybe you decide to do something completely different. Last year, my family had Italian Thanksgiving instead of traditional turkey Thanksgiving. And that was a fun and different way for us to celebrate. So really thinking about ways to get creative. We've talked about this already, but finding opportunities to journal or write. So writing for 10 to 15 minutes in a free-flowing stream of conscious style really kind of gives us an opportunity to sort of brain dump. Sometimes if you're like me, I have a lot of things floating around in my head, and it can get really busy in there. And sometimes I need to just get it out and write it on a piece of paper. And so I might just spend some time, jotting down, like, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What is kind of going through my head in this very moment? And don't censor yourself. Sometimes we want to sort of only make it the positive things or only make it the good things. If it's not, that's okay. This is an opportunity for you to really, again, kind of going back to tip number 1, acknowledging those feelings and finding ways to express them. Another idea is writing down 3 things or 2 things or 1 thing that's bothering you. And what's something that you can actively do to try to address that concern. So maybe you're feeling stressed out about, going out to stores to buy holiday gifts. So maybe one thing that you can do to address that is to look at doing some other shopping online, or maybe you really want to make sure that you're supporting local businesses, small local businesses. And so what's something that you can do, an action that you could do to help you feel like you're supporting those small businesses during this challenging time. So again, that journaling and writing is really, it's an opportunity for us to acknowledge those feelings, to let them out, and kind of give us a chance to sort of plan ahead. Okay, and our final tip to talk about is reaching out. So if you are feeling isolated or lonely, reach out to family members and friends and find those creative ways to connect virtually. So maybe it's, a video birthday celebration. Maybe it's ways, maybe it's playing games together on family game night. Maybe it's watching a movie together, whatever ways we can connect with our family and friends virtually. There's a lot of, there's people have gotten very creative, virtual book clubs, virtual game nights. There's a lot of different ways that we can continue to connect in that virtual world. And if you're really struggling, it's important to seek professional help from a therapist, counselor, or a peer support specialist. And so no matter where you are, the United Way 211 number is available. Here in Maryland, if you press 1, that will connect you to local behavioral health resources. Each state might be different, but usually when you dial that 211, it gives you kind of their menu of how to get to different places. But that 211 number is available in all states throughout the United States. So if you feel like you need some help connecting with a professional, that is a great place to start. You can also contact your local behavioral health administration, and they can get you connected. Another great resource for those of you who are working, most companies have an employee assistance program, and those programs typically offer a few sessions with a therapist or counselor for their employees. And so you can contact your HR representative to get information about that employee assistance program and get connected with those services. You also can just kind of go through your insurance company website or call your insurance company to find local professionals in the area who accept your insurance. So we want to make sure that we're finding ways to connect. So again, is it making a video call? Is it making a phone call? What ways are we connecting with individuals and family members so that we don't feel that isolation as much? So it's important to keep in mind that different does not necessarily mean bad. So this year is going to be different, but that doesn't mean that it has to be a bad holiday season. The holidays, they don't need to be canceled. They don't need to be minimized. We can continue with our traditions that are safe to do so. We can create new traditions. This is really an opportunity for all of us to kind of reflect on what's most important to us during the holiday season and how do we continue to incorporate that into our experiences as individuals, as family, as friends, as neighbors. And so I've seen a lot of those memes that talk about, there's a lot of things that aren't canceled. And the holidays are on that list too. We don't have to cancel them. We can continue to celebrate in new ways. And maybe you will find that one of your new traditions is really special and meaningful to you. And so I encourage you to think about ways to either adjust your traditions to maintain their safety, or what are some of those things that you've always wanted to try or always wanted to start doing as a family, and now is the opportunity to take that experience to a new level. So I love this quote, and this is how I always like to end my discussions on self-care, that taking care of myself doesn't mean me first, it means me too. So as friends, as family members, as parents, as teachers, as employees, we are always, taking care of other people. And so we're not minimizing that. We want you to, continue to do that. And you don't necessarily have to say, I'm going to stop doing all those things because I need to take care of myself, but you need to include yourself in that process. And so making sure that we're giving ourselves an opportunity to take care of ourselves too, as we continue to support those around us. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes or so for questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type those into the chat. If you have suggestions or ideas, for things that have been working really well for you, also feel free to share those with the participants.
We've had a number of suggestions roll through the chat for the last couple minutes, and as folks are getting their questions prepared, I'll just kind of run through them for everyone, for those of you who may not be able to see the chat. Some of our suggestions from attendees included making the gratitude list and sharing it with your family members on New Year's Eve as a tradition of kind of looking back on the year and the things you're grateful for during it. Someone else shared the idea of purchasing gift certificates from local businesses or vendors for yourself or to give to other people, or if you don't use it, that works too.
Mhm.
Another attendee shared learning about other cultural practices, trying new recipes, trying different celebrations than you typically do. Two of our attendees shared that they're playing games over video chat. One person was playing, I think, Wingspan. It's a board game,
Mhm.
and they were playing it with their grandson, and they each had a board, and then they played it over video chat, and that worked well and was fun. And there's also some virtual games that folks are playing as well, and that's helping them to stay connected.
Great. All right.
Emily is asking for suggestions on improving sleep during this time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so sleep is definitely can be a challenge, especially when, there's not necessarily kind of the divide between, work and home. Um, so one suggestion that I would make, sometimes people find that, kind of at the end of the day, it's just really hard for them to sort of turn their mind off. And so having a notebook right by your bed, if you find yourself kind of laying there sort of spinning on different things, taking a few minutes to just sort of write those things on the notebook and say, okay, I've written them down. Tomorrow I can look back at this and address these things. Sometimes that can help people sort of declutter their mind to relax enough to sleep. There's also different, sometimes people find quiet, soothing music to be helpful in getting them to sleep. So I have used an app called Sleep Pillow, which has like different sounds. So there's, kind of waves and light music and a crackling fire, and different things that, will give kind of an opportunity to again, sort of be focused on just that. And that can sometimes help you sort of relax enough to fall asleep. Um, Another suggestion too is sometimes maybe we just, if it's possible, shifting that bedtime, um, avoiding screens before bed. I know it's kind of one of those sort of broken record things that people talk about. But I know from my own experience, I find that when I'm on my computer or my iPad, not in sort of night mode right before bed, it is sometimes harder for me to kind of shut down. So hopefully those are some helpful suggestions.
Sandra is wondering, before I jump into that, Angela shared that she learned that one of the best things you can do recently for sleep is to consistently go to bed and wake up at the same times.
Yes,
Typically
excellent
recommend
suggestion.
drinking tea before bed, and it may work better if it's decaffeinated.
Yes. And not too close to bed, because then sometimes you're up in the middle of the night having to go to the bathroom.
So Sandra is wondering if we have any suggestions for dealing with family members that may not be happy with your decision not to attend a family gathering for the holidays.
Hmm. Yeah, so that kind of that, I guess that sort of goes back to our tip about learning how to say no, and kind of the internal struggle that we have of, the guilt that we might feel. So I think, one of the things that's really important is just to being honest with our family, and really kind of explaining, you know, not that we need to explain everything that we do, but is there an opportunity to kind of share the reasoning for those decisions? So, maybe it's that someone in the family is at a higher risk for complications because of COVID, or maybe it's that some people work in healthcare and don't want to risk exposure to the other family members. And I think, you know, saying no, we're not gonna participate in this is one piece of the conversation. It may also be helpful to come up with a different suggestion. So maybe you're not going to attend that particular family event, but is it possible to, video call in so that you can still participate in some way with the family? Is it possible to, do an activity outside if that feels more comfortable to people? But really, I think, sometimes it's easy to just say, we're not going to do that. But if we have the opportunity to explain why, that might make the conversation and the feelings a little bit easier for everyone to handle. And then also, coming up with alternative ways to have those moments together.
And if I could add a little
Yes,
piece to
please.
you do all those things and all else fails, like your decision does not depend on their agreement with it. So that's something to be mindful of, as well as that you have the power to say no, even if others don't agree with you. So we have a lot of suggestions about sleep coming into our chat box. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any other questions before I mention what they are. Ed has a suggestion for self-care. He actually brings his guitar to work and plays it during lunch.
Awesome. That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. All right, so please keep those questions coming. As we're waiting for more questions, I'm going to run through some of these suggestions for Emily that requested about bed and sleeping better at night. Does that sound okay, Amanda?
Sounds great. Please do.
All right. So some suggestions from our other attendees. Have a bedtime routine that you start 1 hour before bed. Wash up before that 1 hour to keep from waking yourself up with the water. Screens off, like Amanda mentioned. Blue light can keep you awake. And turn off those notifications on your phone. That's a big one. I personally put my phone on do not disturb when it's time to get ready for bed. Calming activities like reading. Michael shares that he uses Spotify. He sets a timer for about 45 minutes or an hour and then falls asleep listening to soothing music.
Great. Excellent. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so I'm going to just, you will have all of these links in the PowerPoint presentation when we send that out. But these 3 websites were where I got most of my information for the presentation. And then we also have some different resources that are available. And so you will have that as well. And then I'll also include the list of different apps that I and others that I know have found helpful as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and if we have any other questions. And again, I just wanted to thank you all for being here with us this afternoon for our self-care during the holidays presentation. I truly appreciate your participation, your suggestions, your ideas, and I really hope that the tips and things that we've talked about will help make your holiday season a little less stressful and a little more joyful. And with that, I will wish you all a very happy holiday season and a wonderful new year. We have almost made it through 2020 and it can only get better from here, right? So happy holidays to everyone. And thank you very much for attending and completing the evaluation for us. Take care.